My name is Kelly Forte. I will be discussing the significance of the Black Arts Movement, also known as BAM. I will also give a few examples of the literature that has emerged from that movement. The Black Arts Movement is normally associated with the 1960s and 70s, though some of the material either predates or postdates this timeline. The movement gained both its name and momentum during the 1960s, which explains this association. The designation Black from the middle 1960s through the early 1970s represented an emergent identification among national activists and intellectuals. This movement took all forms of art, including poetry, drama, fiction, autobiography, and theoretical essays, to attempt to unify white and black America, and just as importantly, renegotiate the power between black men and women. The difference between black power and black art is very subtle. Black power is concerned with the relationship between art and politics, while black art is concerned with the art of politics. The Black Arts Movement may be read from a post-millennial view as a revision of the terms of self-identification and of social, economic, and political existence. The BAM Declaration of Independence in America was to revolutionize thought in the public sphere, direction of philosophical inquiry, and practice in artistic production. Self-determined, liberated aspirations were expressed in theory, poetry, fiction, dramatic arts, music, dance, painting, sculptures, and textiles. Like the Declaration of 1776, the declaration issued by the Black Arts Movement of the 1960s emancipated a deep desire, as phrased by Gwendolyn Brooks, to assume a sovereignty ourselves. In 1970, The Black Woman, an anthology, brought 28 activist writers to publication. These writers included Frances Beale, Helen Cade Brehorn, Grace Lee Boggs, Jean Carey Bond, Carol Brown, Tony Cade, Joanna Clark, Ann Cook, Francie Covington, Nikki Giovanni, Joanne Grant, Joyce Green, Maud White Kantz, Abby Lincoln, Kay Lindsay, Audre Lorde, Berta Mace, Mark Grossover, Paul Marshall, Gwen Patton, Patricia Perry, Pat Robinson, Fran Sanders, Gail Stokes, Alice Walker, Helen Williams, and Shirley Ann Williams. This project, put together by Tony Cade, spurred on the movement. As Tony Cade expressed in her preface, what characterizes the current movement of the 60s is a turning away from the larger society and a turning toward each other. I will be presenting specific material from Kay Lindsay, Audre Lorde, Gail Stokes, and Maud White Kantz. The essay, End Racism in Education, A Concerned Parent Speaks, is included in the Black Woman, an anthology. Maud White Kantz is a concerned mother of 2 daughters from New York City. This essay promotes the importance of quality education for all. It informs society of the history of excluding blacks from both trade schools and unions, among various other institutions. She goes on to state that black children are as capable of being educated as white children. In order for the black community to be a contributing member of society, they must have access to competitive education. When poetry entered the movement through music and theaters, a change occurred. The public arts, spoken word poetry and drama, fulfilled another aspiration of the Black Arts Movement, to evoke a consciousness of something called the self, and from that site to create an identity called one people. The poetry of the period led to self-generating standards and unflinching critical evaluation. In addition to developing an audience, Black Arts poetry and drama emphasizes the oral and performance traditions of the African Americans, in particular such vernacular practice as rapping, signifying, sounding, and running it down, created a public cultural space for the later emergence of hip-hop and spoken word poetry. It awakened a complementary revolutionary project for social examination as well as literary examination, a recognition of the power relationship between man and woman. Like the freedom songs of the civil rights movement, the poetry of black women writers builds upon the oral traditions of African American folk songs, associated with spirituals, sorrow songs, and gospels. The poetry reflects the disillusionment, as Houston Baker explains. After the arrests, bombings, and assassinations that comprise the South's reaction to nonviolent, direct-action protests by hundreds of thousands of civil rights workers, it was difficult for even the most committed optimists to feel that integration was an impending social reality. Many of the African American women writers faced not only the disillusionment of racial issues, but women issues as well. Kay Lindsay's poem illustrates the suffering that occurred for motherhood as the woman's struggle for equal rights blazed around society. As often happens, lines were blurred when being a mother became an insult and put mothers on a low level of society. Unfortunately, with the rise of liberated women, the traditional woman was to sit at the back of the bus. I'm not one of those who believes that an act of valor for a woman need take place inside her. My womb is packed in mothballs, and I hear the winter will be mild. Anyway, I gave birth twice, and my body deserves a medal for that, but I never got one. But now that the revolution needs numbers, motherhood got a new position, 5 steps behind manhood. And I thought, sitting in the back of the bus went out with Martin Luther King. And What About the Children by Audre Lorde. Now we've made a child, and the dire predictions have changed into wild, grim speculations. Yet the negatives are still waiting, watching, while the relatives keep on touching. And how much curl is right for a girl? But if he said at some future date to have a head that's put on. Writer-activist organizations helped promote the fiction of black women writers, which coincided with the opening of Baraka's Black Arts Theater School in 1965. Many women writers began their apprenticeship in these programs. Many of the works of fiction that associated with this movement predate 1960. 2 examples are Gwendolyn Brooks' poetry novella Maud Martha from 1953 and Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God from 1937. Maud Martha wants desperately to be cherished, and therefore the novella looks inward through a young girl's consciousness. Looking inward instead of outward is what distinguishes the fiction of black women writers, influencing and being influenced by the black arts movement. Their Eyes Were Watching God. Many of the issues that are addressed are major issues in the black arts movement, including, but not limited to, domestic violence, women's rights, and African American rights. These were both written well before the movement officially began. There is no doubt, though, that they not only belong within that movement, but have inspired those who came after them. A piece directly from this movement is Gail Stokes' Black Man, My Man, Listen. This compelling story looks through a woman's eyes who is excited that her husband has come home. She loves him so. She encourages and praises him. Unfortunately, the more she gives, the heavier he leans. She finally realizes that he is quietly letting her take the lead. He is quiet, evasive, and staying to himself. It is all up to her. All she wants is for him to take pride, stand up, and be her man. In conclusion, there has been a prevalent view that by 1975, the black arts movement had been destroyed by disagreements among its most respected theorists. However, another view predominates and reveals the black arts movement as a many-sided, multi-voiced, social and self-critical project whose errors, limitations, and failures are as critical to the process of self-liberation as are its achievements. Like any literary, cultural, and social movement, the black arts movement cannot be comprehended as a time-bound event. It grew out of a lineage of activists, intellectual and creative activity, with fomented its aspirations, discourses, and primary objectives. The objectives will continue to evolve as long as oppression of any kind exists.